This is the fifth and final week of our series called When God Doesn't Make Sense. We've looked at when God tells us no. We talked about suffering and death. We examined how God can test us and to choose to go to God with our hardships instead of grumbling. And we looked at offering our hardships and difficulties up for God to work for good and bring resurrection, new life from them. Today, we're looking at God's timing versus our timing. To help us understand this problem better, we're going to look at a passage from the Gospel of St. John that we heard in Mass this past weekend. So let me give you a little bit of background. Friends of Jesus, Mary and Martha, send a message to him that their brother Lazarus is sick. Jesus intentionally waits because he's going to perform an incredible miracle that would glorify God and lead to belief and faith. But from the perspective of someone that doesn't know what God is going to do, which is often the case for us, what happens seems to not make sense. St. John tells us, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, let's pause there for a moment. What would you expect to hear Jesus did next? Maybe that he rushed over there and ran to his bedside, or that he wasted not a minute to reach out and help. But maybe unexpectedly, we read that he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. And when he finally goes, it seems far too late. Lazarus has already been dead for 4 days. And this was an important detail. St. John wants us to know Lazarus was really dead. When Jesus arrives, Lazarus' sister Martha goes out to meet him and says, Lord, if you had been there, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Martha expresses faith in Jesus. Next, the other sister, Mary, shows up. Mary appears to be a mess. She's weeping and falls at Jesus' feet. But like Martha, Mary also expresses her faith. Now, interestingly, it's Mary's emotion and the emotion of those mourning with her that affects Jesus. He too becomes deeply troubled. In a short yet incredibly powerful sentence, St. John tells us, and Jesus wept. Jesus wept. I find this incredibly comforting. Jesus knows what he's going to do shortly, but he still weeps. He wept along with Mary. He understands her emotion. He shares it. He allows himself to experience it. And with us, even though the Lord can see the big picture beyond the pain and confusion that we experience in the moment, he's compassionate with us in our pain and loss. I like to imagine that he weeps with us too when we weep. And Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And we learn, after he does that, now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. So, was Jesus really late? He knew that he could perform a great miracle that would lead more people to faith if he waited. His timing was perfect. And it has an impact all the way up to us today, about 2,000 years later, of what God can do and will do for us. We're now approaching Holy Week. In a special way, as a church community, we'll walk in the footsteps of Jesus in his final week on earth, his suffering, his death, his resurrection. In this series, we've talked about how we can offer up our suffering for God to bring about good, to bring resurrection from the tragedies, the hardships, the confusing experiences that we all face. Now, our invitation to you is to really make the most of Holy Week. Come as much as you can to all the liturgies throughout the week. Wave the palms this Sunday. Feel the water over your feet and sit in adoration before Christ in the Eucharist like you're in the garden with him before he's arrested. Touch the cross and experience the joy and brightness of Easter. Lean into what Jesus went through and did for us, his suffering and death, which defeated sin and death by his death and rising. Victory. And maybe in the midst of all that, walking in Jesus' footsteps during Holy Week, the times God doesn't make sense and has been confusing are put into their proper perspective against the big picture of just how much He loves us. And oh, how He does. This is the special opportunity to experience that truth as a church family. Now, in closing, I want to say thank you. Thank you, small groups, for committing to these 5 sessions. We hope it's enriched your journey through Lent. We hope you'll join us at the 9 a.m. Mass on Palm Sunday, March 29th, for a blessing for all small group participants. We also hope that you'll consider meeting as a group even after Lent. Consistently gathering with others in a small group goes a long way in growing as disciples of Jesus. Talk to your group about what's next. Even if you meet less frequently after this series, I encourage you, keep the habit alive. Let's make St. Joe's, to quote what I once heard, to be not a parish with small groups, but a parish of small groups. Let's walk this walk together.